You know what challenges they're going through, and you can help them overcome one or two small challenges. That's how you start to earn trust. That's how you land on their radar, and that's how they will turn around to you and start looking at you as a viable option to help them overcome bigger challenges.
In this episode, we delve deep into all things branding, the importance of a brand strategy, brand identity, your audience, and much more with Stephen Houraghan. Stephen is a brand strategist, consultant, the CEO and founder of Brand Master Academy, and the host of the Brand Master podcast. After gaining qualifications in both design and marketing, which he combined with his business experience, he created the iconic Fox agency, providing brand strategy and creative services for global clients. Stephen has helped tens of thousands of students and followers to transform their businesses and multiply their revenues by leveraging the brand strategy systems, processes, and tools he provides through his teaching and programs.
Brand strategy it's a term that can be quite often confused. We tend to, overcomplicate things in marketing and in branding. There are so many different words for so many different things, and it tends to get convoluted and diluted. But really breaking it down, a brand strategy is a plan for your brand. Now, of course, that is the oversimplified version, but when we kind of dive into the weeds a little bit, it really helps you to put together the method of your brand. Now, we all know that businesses, they tend to be created by one or two people with hopes and dreams of riding the train to success. And a lot of businesses like that, they tend to pick things up as they go. And it's very easy to take a wrong turn or to get the wrong information. And all of a sudden you're on Facebook ads, driving traffic to a website, and you're really not set up for that. You don't have any kind of plan in the background as to who you are as a brand, what you mean to your audience, and clear messaging as to why your audience should choose you over your competitors. And when we break it down, that is the center point of what brand strategy is. It's about defining why your audience should choose you over your competitors, getting crystal clear on what that differentiation strategy is and what that position in the market is going to be, and then building the rest of your brand around that. So everything you do, everything you speak about talks about the difference that you offer in the market. And over time, if you're consistent with that, you start to build a reputation in the market as the brand for this specific thing. Because the alternative to that, Deirdre, as you know, is you go into the market and you try to be all things to everybody. And in doing that, you blend into the market. You don't speak to anybody in particular. There's no way to resonate with your audience because there's nothing unique about you compared to all the rest. And so many businesses out there like that just blend in, and they're the ones that make up the big percentage numbers that we see of failed startups who went into the market with hopes and dreams and then fell by the wayside. So the short answer to that question is your brand strategy is a plan for how you're going to be different and how you're going to mobilize that message into the market.
Stephen, I love that answer. Talking about mainstream, a lot of major brands like Coca-Cola or say Lego, well actually Lego's audience might be a bit different because to be fair, their audience is mainly kids. So that's probably a poor example, but those major brands like Coca-Cola, it feels like probably to someone who's a new entrepreneur that those brands are marketing to the mainstream and they're so successful. So they're thinking, why can't I? Is that something that you come across often where people make that mistake because they're looking at the big brands and thinking that that's the way to go?
Yes, absolutely. And those entrepreneurs who like to read up and keep themselves educated might have come across Byron Sharp's work, How Brands Grow, and Byron Sharp talks about, being available, talking about availability in the market and kind of being everywhere, marketing to the masses. And if you are Coca-Cola or Nike or McDonald's and your budget is endless, then you have the capabilities to be absolutely everywhere. But if you're not in that position, if you need to make every dollar count and you're starting off and you don't have a reputation in the market, well, then, you just ask a few basic questions and you'll very quickly come to the conclusion that, well, hey, I need to actually have a bit of substance behind the message that I'm putting out there into the market. Because we've all been there, and anybody who is in the entrepreneurial space has all seen, we've all seen ads in our feed, which are targeted towards small businesses. And I don't know about you, but for me, if I see a message to a small business, that's not talking to me. Although I have a small business, I've come from a small business background, and I get it. You're not talking to me. If you talk instead to a brand strategist or a creative solopreneur or some kind of very, very specific niche with a very, very specific language profile, the types of things that they say, what's interesting to them, the challenges that they have that are different to the challenges of every other entrepreneur, that's when you can start to get down to the nitty gritty. That's when you can start to really hit home with your messages and talk about things that keep them up at night and talk about the emotions that are attached to those things. Because this vanilla marketing, this kind of, wide net approach to try and market your business, it simply doesn't work. And Mark Zuckerberg is happy to take your money while you test this stuff out. But ultimately, if you don't have a message that's tuned into exactly who your audience is, then, even though those minuscule cents that you're paying for the scroll in the feed, they're just scrolling past, and, your message is not hitting home. On the other hand, if you do take the time, especially early on, before you get into what your marketing strategy is going to be, where you're going to put your dollars in terms of marketing spend, if you're able to spend that extra time on who the audience is, it makes your marketing so much cheaper. I think it was Abraham Lincoln that said, what was it? Give me a day to chop down a tree, or 8 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. Don't quote me on that because I've clearly messed up those numbers. It's something along those lines, but it's the same thing with branding. You've got to take the time to sharpen your axe, and in sharpening your axe within branding is really understanding who your audience is, what makes them different to the rest of the market, and defining how you're going to communicate and resonate with them in a way that's different to all of your competitors. It's specificity and resonance. And resonance is the key there, because, if you're in a room, right, and we were just talking about this before, I'm Irish like yourself, but I was living in Australia for 20 years. And if I walked into a room, even though I'm so used to the Australian accent for 20 years, if I heard an Irish accent in the corner, I would be automatically drawn to them. And I would be automatically drawn to them because there is familiarity there. Chances are they would know things that I know based on the similarities of upbringing in Ireland. And the same principle applies across anything you do. The familiarity that you can bring to a relationship holds weight. And all things being equal, if somebody is weighing up your business and somebody else's business, and you're able to bring some kind of familiarity to the table, that breeds trust. That gives you an edge in the market, because they think to themselves, well, this person knows me better. And if they know me better, I can trust them better than I can the rest. So that resonance is absolutely key in building trust and building that relationship.
Thanks for that, Stephen. And actually, that's something we've touched on in one of the earlier episodes we've recorded. I'll add the details to the show notes for listeners to check it out. It's all about how to gather market insights, even if you have no budget. So, Stephen, let me ask you, brand strategy. It's not a business you've always been in. So, when you first came to be in this business, what myths or misconceptions did you come across?
I come from a design background, and in like a lot of business owners today, they build a business because they have a certain skill set that they realize is valuable in the market. And with the digital transformation that we've gone through over the past 15 years or so, it's made it so much easier to sell those services to people. But if you can't overcome that mental block and that hurdle that you are simply selling your services, then you're going to end up in the commodities business, competing with other service providers on price. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I was in the agency world. I was working for agencies as an employed designer, and I started to get people coming to me asking me to do work on the side, and that built into something that was like, hey, this could sustain me. Why don't I pack in the job and go all in on this and be my own boss, was the phrase that I kind of clung to back then. That's what I did. I started selling my design services, and I did all right in the beginning. As I said, I had a lot of referrals, but I noticed a shift in the market about 2 years into my freelance career, and I started noticing these referrals and existing clients kind of just disappearing into the background. And that's when I started to realize that you had online marketplaces like freelancer.com and Odesk and all of these places where my clients and my prospects were getting things done cheaper overseas. So I had a bit of a crossroads at that moment. I was like, well, why should they choose me over them? If I can't answer that question, well, then, they shouldn't choose me over them. If they can go and get that done cheaper over there, and I can't give them a compelling reason to choose me, then I have no business telling them otherwise. So that sent me on this road of discovery to differentiate myself. And differentiation strategy became this focal point, which kind of expanded then into positioning strategy. What is my position in the market? And that just opened up this whole world of brand strategy. Marty Neumeier was my go-to back then. I read all of his books, and then I started on Al Reese and Jack Trout and David Aker and all of these masters in marketing and branding. And that's when I really started to understand that the services that I thought I was offering branding services. I wasn't. I was offering design services dressed up as branding, because the visual brand is actually only about 10% of the whole brand. The rest of the elements that make up the brand are born from the strategic decisions that you make within the brand strategy phase. And that's when I really started to grasp what brand strategy was. And in, following this rabbit hole for myself and my own business, I realized that this is exactly what my audience and my prospective clients were crying out for, because they came looking for a brand, and I was happy to tell them, yeah, I'll design a brand for you. But I did not have the know-how. I didn't have the systems to realize that, no, I wasn't in fact giving them a brand at all. I was giving them a logo. And once that logo was designed, they had nothing else. They had nothing to go on out into the market to tell their customers why they were different, to put very specific and relevant messages into the market in front of their audience in a compelling way so that they choose them over their competitors. And that's what I learned. And that's when I started to provide brand strategy services to give my clients what I had realized was the missing piece from my own business. And that is differentiating yourself and learning how to put very, very relevant messages into the market to very, very specific audiences.
What a fantastic answer. Oh my gosh, I can really hear the truth in what you're saying in terms of your own experience and that realization, because I see that with a lot of people I engage with in business now, and even sometimes with people whose businesses have been established for 20 years or more. And that leads me on to a question about brand strategy, whereby a lot of people don't necessarily know about brand strategy, right? Like a lot of people, as you've just said, think that when you have your logo and you have your website, that you have your brand strategy sorted. So how can we enlighten the world a little bit more about what brand strategy is and when they should get going on this in their business?
Yeah. And look, that's a great question. And before I dive into how we can kind of close that education gap, I've got a theory on why we are where we are. I mean, 40 years ago or so, the marketing degrees that you could get had branding as this small subset of marketing. So you had marketing, you had the traditional 4 Ps, which have now become the 7 Ps, and you had all of these old traditional terms. And really, if you go and get a marketing degree today, not much has changed there, even though in the real world, branding has evolved into this overarching discipline that governs not just the marketing side of things, but the business side of things as well. So the traditional education routes is one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that, when we did go through this digital transformation, all of a sudden you had all of these newbie entrepreneurs coming into the market, and all these people with tactical skill sets, such as designers like myself, meeting in these marketplaces. And it was like the blind leading the blind. So you had, designers putting their hands up and saying that they were brand specialists and offering branding services. And you had, entrepreneurs saying, yeah, I need branding services. And then believing that because they had a logo, they had a brand. So you had this blind spot in the market for so many years, but now branding has evolved into this beast that it governs absolutely everything. And all we can do as professionals is first start by helping our clients to understand. This is directly to you, Deirdre, you helping your clients to close the education gap. In terms of entrepreneurs, how do they close their own education gap? Well, luckily today there is so much more information online than there was when I started down this rabbit hole. When I started down this rabbit hole, it was just books. You didn't have YouTube channels. The articles were thin on the ground. They weren't of high quality. Today, there's so much information out there that will help you to close that education gap. But make no mistake, that education gap is still huge, because the well-worn path today is for somebody with a skill set to say, hey, my skills are valuable. I want to create a business. They go into the market to create a business. They go looking for branding services. They find a designer. They get a logo. They get a website. And then they go, what now? And they could waste 2 or 3 years just getting by with a few, friends of friends, contacts, and never really building anything out. Whereas if they start from the beginning and go, okay, well, let's figure this thing out. If I'm going to build a business and I want to build a brand, what's my first port of call? And if you're going to start down that rabbit hole, your first port of call with anything got to do with branding and marketing is your target audience. Getting very, very specific on who they are, why they're different to the rest of the market who could potentially want what you have, and then how you're going to position to that group of people to say, hey, we are the brand that's most relevant for you, and here's why. And that's where the messaging comes into play. So anybody who wants to close that education gap, start by really understanding how to find insights about your audience, how to target a very, very specific audience, and how to differentiate yourself from the other competitors in the market who want to serve your potential clients.
Stephen, one of the things that happened to me in my own business was that when I originally launched my business back in January of 2021, my goal was to become a customer experience specialist. I wanted to come out and help everyone with customer experience and make a difference in the lives of the people I touched and create a ripple effect. That was my purpose. Okay, and I still live by that purpose. But one of the realizations I had when I started to engage with clients was the gap to get to the stage where they were going to be delivering those differentiated customer experiences. So you had to start with the foundation, which is the brand. So there was a gap between the brand stage and the experience stage. And that brand creates a culture, it creates a message, and it's so much more than just a logo and a website. And that's the myth. If we don't bust anything else today, that's the myth we need to make sure to bust. But it's the case, let's say, from a cultural perspective, even for recruiting, that if a brand doesn't have their values in situ, if they're not clear on what their purpose, vision, and mission is, it makes it difficult to hire the right people in the business and be able to deliver differentiated customer experiences, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, there are many different elements that make up a brand. You've touched on a few elements there, and no doubt all of your listeners will have heard of them before. You know, brand purpose, brand vision, brand mission, and these are what I call the secondary branding elements. Now, we've seen so many articles. Some of us have read books. There's a book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why, and it tells us that in order for us to help our customers believe what we do, we need to believe in why we do what we do first. And there definitely is an element of truth in that, and I do teach the secondary elements of brand strategy. But before we get to those secondary elements, we have to become customer centric first, because as much as a lofty brand purpose is where we believe in changing the world, we believe in this, we believe in a healthier planet, we believe in all of these things, we're never going to get the attention of our audience if we can't first scratch the main itch. And the main itch is, what's in it for me? Now, when our audience is in a position of having a challenge that our brand has the solution for, that's when they start to look out into the market to go, well, how am I going to overcome this challenge? And if your first message is, well, here's our brand purpose, we believe in a better place where businesses can come together, that's not going to get their attention. If they have a challenge where they need an immediate solution, then you have to scratch that itch first. And knowing who your audience is, the exact challenges that they're going through, and how you are different from your competitors is the unique way that you're going to scratch that itch when compared to your competitors. And the more you know about your audience, the more relevant you can be in scratching that itch. So it's really getting to a place where we understand what we're actually building from the ground up. We are, we're not building an entity as a cash machine. We are, if and many businesses are built that way. All they want is, customers, conversion rates, and they have a product, they and they want as much turnover as possible in terms of revenue and income. But if you want to build an actual brand, it's about the customer. It's about being customer centric. It's about understanding who they are, scratching their what's in it for me itch first, and then building everything else around that, building the foundation around that, and then building the relationship with that client long term as well.
How does that tie into the culture within a company or organization? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so if you are clear from the get-go as to the type of brand that you want to build, then you can integrate those beliefs into the fabric of your business from the very start. And in order to get to a position where you know what type of brand you want to build, you need to start with strategy. You need to start with standing back, looking into the competitive landscape, looking at your own beliefs, and then deciding this is the type of brand that we want to be. And most business owners, they don't do that. I just created a video today on brand philosophy. And your brand philosophy is about knowing your own methodology, the way you do things, and why that methodology is important. And at the bare bones, if you don't have a grasp on the methodology of your business that is different to your competitors, and what's behind that methodology, the beliefs that are behind that methodology, then you're not going to be able to give them a compelling reason to choose you. If you do have a firm grasp on the methodology of your brand and why that methodology is important, then you can start to build that into the fabric of your business. Everybody who you onboard, you're able to say, look, this is who we are as a brand. This is why we are this way. This is the type of audience that we're trying to appeal to. This is the way we're going to resonate with those people. This is the foundation of your brand. And if you are not crystal clear on who you are as a brand, then first of all, you're not going to be able to appeal to who your audience is, because you're not relevant enough to them. And then you're not going to be able to bring other people within the business into your own philosophy and idea about who we are as a brand. So starting from the center point, and this has to be from the brand leadership team, getting crystal clear on who you're trying to target, why you're different, what you believe, and what your methodology is and why that's important to you.
That really resonates with me, because a client I was working with recently who has been established for quite some time, and they have a very successful business and a sizable team with a lot of revenue being turned over every year. And one of the things that they really wanted some help with was their employee handbook, because everything in the employee handbook was about maternity leave and paternity leave and annual leave and all of those sorts of things. But what it didn't actually cover was what we were about and all of those things you've just talked about. And they came to this realization on their own, which was fantastic. But it also probably stemmed from an earlier interaction in which we very much discussed customer experience and coming back to the brand basics, which they didn't really understand. I suppose that businesses that have been established for quite some time, they mightn't realize that sometimes they need to look at that brand part. So when should businesses be doing this work?
Well, the short answer to that question is from the very beginning. From the very beginning. Now, I do understand that that's not how all businesses are created. And some businesses go many, many years and they find success not because they don't have a brand, it's in spite of the fact that they don't have a brand. They might have hit the right conditions at the right time, the right offer to the right market, and they had early success. They had, early mover advantage. There could be any number of reasons that business has gone into the market and had, some kind of level of success. But I would imagine that this group that you were talking to before, they didn't have that in their employee book because they didn't know the answers to these very, very simple questions. And it's when you start asking questions about your business and about your brand and start working your way back and asking bigger and bigger questions, that's when you can start to really step back and realize, well, we don't really know what we're about. And if you don't know what you're about, how do you expect your audience to know what you're about? And if they don't know what you're about, then your competitor is very, very close by telling them what they're about. So it's the answer to the question is immediately. Now, I do understand that you've got a lot of business owners coming into the market and they're on a shoestring budget. They're trying to do everything with as little money as possible and, to just get out there into the market. And what I would say to people like that is that I have seen so many people come in front of me saying, Stephen, I need help with my brand. I cut corners early on. I went and I got a logo on Fiverr.com. I got a website. I ended up spending thousands of dollars on that. I ended up spending thousands of dollars on Facebook ads. And now I'm stepping back, realizing, well, the brand that I have, it's not speaking to me. It's not speaking to who my audience is. I'm not really clear on who my audience is. You can cut corners early on, but like anything, you will pay for it later on. You will pay for it with money, or you will pay for it with time, or you will pay for it with both. My advice to anyone starting a business, even if they've been in business for 20 years and they have a business that's ticking along nicely, take stock of where you're at. Take a step back and ask some very, very basic fundamental questions. Who is our audience? And don't answer that question with demographics and psychographics. Really get specific. Who exactly is our audience, and why are we targeting them? Who else is targeting them, and how are we positioning ourselves as a different or a more compelling choice to those competitors? That's just the bare bones. And then when you start to ask those deeper questions, then you start to open it up. Well, let's really think big about what we're trying to build here. Where do we want to see our future brand? Where is our brand going to be in 10 years? And if we're going to build a brand like that, well, then, how are we going to get there? What are we going to be committed to? What is the way that we're going to do business? What reputation do we want to build in the market? And then you build that throughout the fabric of your brand, through every single touch point, whether it's customer service, whether it's your website, whether it's your social posts. And that then goes into everything, including your onboarding documents, where an employee comes into the business and they open up this document and it goes, this is who we are. This is who we're for. This is why we're different. This is what we believe. This is where we're going. This is how we're going to get there. When somebody comes into an organization like that, they feel that they're part of something bigger than themselves, that this is a brand that they can actually get behind and believe. And people who are part of brands like that, where the culture, the brand is ingrained in the culture, and they really think about these things, the people within those businesses are happier in those businesses. They produce better work, and that's seen on the outside of the brand as well. So your brand is absolutely everything, and you have to have that sense of self within your brand as to, this is who we are, for both your audience and your employees, so that everybody is aligned and we all see this brand as this living and breathing entity that means something to people.
Yes, that's really interesting. And Dan Pink, I don't know if you've heard of him. Dan Pink wrote a book called Drive, and he talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And obviously, we're all different, and the things that motivate us can be different. Like, it's not always necessarily money that's the motivator for people. And Dan Pink has this great TED talk with animated stick men. It's a kind of a cartoon thing. It's great and worth checking out. But in it, he talks about purpose, and he talks about that being a major motivator for people. And if you've got customers and employees alike being aligned with your brand's purpose, it can help to drive results. So get started straight away, folks, even with a shoestring budget, and ask yourselves those questions Stephen just mentioned. So, Stephen, we're coming to the end of the show, and I've got a couple of questions I still want to ask you. Some listeners, they might be dreamers, they might have a side hustle going on, they might be an aspiring 7 or 8 figure CEO, or already there. But here's the question: is it even possible to build your dream business?
Absolutely. It happens every day. Before we get into the nitty gritty on a basic level, you first need to take the risk. And then secondly, you need to work hard. But you also need to be smart about what you do and where you allocate your time. And, this is a learning curve for anybody who's starting business for the first time. It's very easy to get overwhelmed in the nuts and bolts of things. How do I update my WordPress website, and how do I, integrate my email automation software? There's a lot of things that can really bog you down. But when you're starting off, if you take stock, if you kind of sit back and this isn't necessarily done in a day or even a week. You might need to really take some time to let it marinate and really think long and hard about, well, what type of brand do I want to build? If I was to be able to click my fingers and with still keeping a bit of realism to keep me in check, well, what kind of brand would I see in that 10-year future, and what kind of impact will that brand have had in those 10 years? What kind of people will they be serving, and what kind of outcome will those people be getting? Why will those people be turning around and saying, that is such a great brand, I love doing business with them for these reasons? Taking stock of what you're trying to build and then projecting that into the future. And again, I know I've harped on about this again and again, but getting crystal clear on who it is that you're trying to help along the way. Because look, we all get into business for different reasons, but a business cannot survive without revenue. And for a lot of people, it's the revenue that and the success of the business that is giving you this bigger purpose, this bigger lifestyle that you want for your family. But along the way, you are actually helping people. You're helping people to reach their dreams. Now, you might not be, helping them to get onto their yacht or to live in their dream home, but you're helping them to overcome a small challenge that is part of their longer term journey. So in that essence, you are helping them. And if you're able to help 10, 20, 100, 1,000, 10,000 people, and again, when you start to project the vision for your brand over 10 years and you work out how many people you can help in a year, then you can start to see these bigger numbers, and you can start to see the impact that you can have in people's lives. And then that feeds into the purpose of, well, the reason that we're doing this is for more than just money. It's for more than just the lifestyle. I want to actually make an impact, and I want to be able to say that the work that I have done has helped people's lives. So, taking a little bit of time to get comfortable with those questions and to answer those questions, so you're not just charging into the market going, I have a service here, who wants my service? Every step that you take has to be calculated, because you don't have endless years. You can't make endless mistakes. You don't have an endless budget. You have an opportunity now to build something. You have a potential market over there that you might need to get a little bit more focused on exactly who they are and exactly how you're going to talk to them. And you need to make calculated decisions to give them what they need. And as you do that, to build something for yourself. So yes, it is absolutely possible to build a dream business, but it's about getting clear on what you want to build, how you're going to build it, and who you're going to help along the way.
So you touched on something there that's prompting me to ask you about impact with your brand. For people listening, what 3 tips or 3 actionable steps can they take to make a bigger impact with their brand?
That's a really good question. And one of the first things, and this will help you to better understand exactly who your audience is as well. And I absolutely love this. And if all you take from this episode is this, you will be at a distinct advantage before listening to this episode. And that is, try to figure out the top 100 questions that your audience might have about the solution that you provide. Now, on the face of it, you might think, oh, how am I going to come up with 100 questions? But you will find very quickly that in coming up with just 10, each one of those questions will splinter off into maybe 5 or 6 more. And all of a sudden you will have 30, 40 questions, and you continue to build on that. Now, if you might, or you may or may not be thinking about creating content, but even if you don't create content, you will have a website, you will have some social pages, and these are the types of things that you are able to talk about with your audience. If you know what challenges they're going through and you can help them overcome 1 or 2 small challenges, that's how you start to earn trust. That's how you land on their radar, and that's how they will turn around to you and start looking at you as a viable option to help them overcome bigger challenges. Another tip that I would say to you when going out into the marketplace is don't be overly corporate. Don't put on this gray suit and brown tie and pretend that you have to talk in a certain corporate way and bore people to death. It's okay to bring your personality to the table. In fact, if you are very, very clear on who your audience is, and the type of attributes that they have and what they're drawn to, and what they're attracted to, and chances are, if that's who you're targeting, then there's part of you in that audience as well. That it always works out that way with business owners who are building their business for the first time. Don't be afraid to bring yourself to the table, to bring who you are to the table, to define the types of traits that bring out the best of you as a person, and then to put them throughout your messaging. Now, you might have a business brand where you've got this business and you've got these services, but you might also have a personal brand as well. You might be on LinkedIn and you might be sharing content and having conversations with different people, answering questions. Whether it is your corporate brand or whether it is your personal brand, don't be afraid to bring a bit of personality to the table, because as people, we don't do business with corporate entities. We do business with other people. And the more relatable you are, the more likable you are, the more you're able to bring your true authentic self to the table, the more likely you are to attract the right type of person into your business as well. And that's probably the third tip. It would be making sure that you attract the right type of client into your business. And this is part of the brand building process. It's sitting back and asking, well, who is it that I want to serve really? And why do I want to serve those people? Is it because these people have the most money? Or is it because I can relate to this person a little bit more? And if you are crystal clear on that type of person, and you are bringing people into your business who you actually want to work with, then that's going to shine through within your business. Your prospects, your customers, they're going to see that you enjoy what you do and that you haven't had, the lifeblood sucked out of you by working with the wrong clients. Get clear on who you want to work with, because you will deliver a better level of service if you are working with people who you actually want to work with, and then you're helping those people to reach their destination as well.
I love that answer, and that really always ties into something I'm telling clients and students about too, which is to get clients to that cheerleader stage where they become raving fans or die-hard fans. It's important that you're attracting the right clients in the first instance. Yes, love that one very much. Thank you, Stephen. Thanks so very much. And so before we wrap up all together, tell us what's happening in your world. What's coming up for Stephen in the next couple of months?
Well, I've got a lot going on my side. Brandmaster Academy is my brand that really has been flourishing now for the past few years. And that was born out of me speaking so much. And that's why I was giving those tips. It's because this is where I've come from. I started to speak in my own tone and my own voice, and I started to be opinionated about my passions and what I loved and what I believed, and that started to draw people to me, and that's how Brandmaster Academy was born, where I teach professional brand builders the same frameworks that I use with clients, how to build strategy into their brands, how to build their brands with strategy. And my YouTube channel is upwards of 40,000 now. And if you are looking to kind of dive into what brand strategy is, it's a great place to start. And that's what's been going on in my world, along with the podcast and interviewing some of the top people in the industry. As you could probably tell, brand strategy is what I absolutely love.
Fantastic. Stephen, thank you so very much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We'll watch this space to see what's coming for you and Brand Masters Academy. Bye for now.